The studio lights blazed down on the audience. A sea of eager faces illuminated in anticipation. The familiar theme music of Family Feud played, its upbeat tempo reverberating through the room. But today, an undercurrent of tension permeated the air. Steve Harvey, the jovial host with a knack for connecting with families, stood at the center of the stage, a smile plastered on his face. But in his eyes, there was something else, an inkling of unease that no one could quite place. "All right, folks, let's get this party started," Steve proclaimed, his voice booming with energy, as he gestured to the two families facing off. On one side, the Johnson family, their smiles bright but their energy oddly subdued. And on the other side, the Martinez family, a boisterous group that seemed to revel in the competition. Among them, a fiery woman named Lucia Martinez stood out, her determination radiating as she locked eyes with her opponents. Little did anyone know, today's episode would unravel in a way no one could have predicted. The stakes were not just about winning a game. They were about confronting uncomfortable truths, deep-rooted family conflicts, and the unbreakable bonds that sometimes fray under pressure. As the game progressed, questions were answered, laughter erupted, but the tension lingered just beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to break free. "Name something you might find in a family photo album," Steve asked, his charismatic charm drawing laughter from the audience as he turned to the Johnsons. Their first attempt was met with a solid but predictable answer. "Kids!" a member exclaimed. The board lit up, and a wave of applause surged through the studio. The Johnsons were riding high, but Lucia's jaw tightened as she listened intently. Then it was the turn of the Martinez family. Lucia stepped forward, her brow furrowed in deep concentration. She had come here to win, not just for the prize, but for something much deeper. A chance to mend her fractured relationship with her estranged brother, Carlos Silva, who stood nervously beside her. Their history was complicated, filled with misunderstandings and hurtful words that echoed through their family gatherings like ghosts haunting the living. "Lucia, what's your answer?" Steve prompted, raising an eyebrow as he noticed her hesitance. Family vacations?" she finally replied, her voice barely above a whisper. The audience held their breath, and the board revealed the answer, a mere 20 points. The applause was polite, but the disappointment was palpable. Lucia's face fell for a moment, but she quickly masked it with a smile, though her heart raced, emotions swirling within her like a tempest. Then it happened. As the game continued, Steve began noticing the tension between Lucia and Carlos. The way they avoided each other's eyes, the subtle fidgeting of hands that once shared childhood memories. It was clear that something lay beneath the surface, and he sensed it would only get more intense from there. "All right, we've got one more round left. Name something families do together," Steve called out, turning to the contestants with enthusiasm. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement, but for Lucia, this was a moment of reckoning. She felt her heart pounding against her chest as she realized this was more than just a game. It was an opportunity to bridge the gap that had formed over the years. "Family dinners!" another member of the Johnson family shouted, followed by a chorus of cheers. The board flashed and points accumulated. But the cheers of victory were met with a heavy silence from the Martinez side, where Lucia felt a familiar ache. "Lucia, it's your turn," Steve encouraged, sensing her hesitation. But this time something shifted inside her. She stepped forward, determination igniting in her eyes. "We need to face this together," she thought, glancing at Carlos, who remained stoic, yet visibly anxious. "Lucia," Steve prompted again, a hint of concern etching his features as he noticed the shift in her demeanor. Her heart raced, the weight of unspoken words heavy on her tongue. Talking about our problems?" she finally blurted out, a mixture of fear and desperation lacing her voice. The studio fell silent. "Interesting answer," Steve replied, his smile faltering as he recognized the gravity in her tone. The audience held its collective breath. The tension felt thick enough to cut with a knife. This was more than a game. It was the unearthing of buried emotions. "Let's see if it's up there." Steve's voice rang out, but his expression had shifted, mirroring the seriousness of the moment. As the board revealed the answer, it was met with gasps. The audience was taken aback. This wasn't just a fun family show anymore. It had morphed into something deeply personal, and Steve realized the profound implications of her response. "It's not there," he exclaimed, attempting to lighten the mood. But the silence that followed felt like a pendulum swinging, each tick resonating with the unasked questions and unresolved issues between the siblings. Lucia's face paled, her heart sinking, but something deeper ignited within her. "Lucia," Steve said gently, "this is the moment. You can't ignore this anymore." He stepped closer, an unusual seriousness etched on his features. The audience watched in rapt attention, sensing the shift from light-hearted antics to raw, vulnerable confrontation. The camera panned out, capturing the entire room. The collective breath held in the suspense of what was about to unfold. Lucia's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she turned to Carlos. "We need to talk like we used to. I missed that," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. The emotional weight hung in the air as the audience exchanged glances, some teary-eyed, all anticipating the outcome of this brave revelation. But just as Steve was about to respond, a sharp sound interrupted the moment, a mic drop of unexpected emotion. The audience gasped, and every eye focused on Lucia, whose voice broke through the tension with a raw honesty. "I don't want to lose you again, Carlos. It's time to face this." What happened next shocked millions, reverberated through the minds of everyone present, as they braced themselves for the emotional fallout of a family that was on the verge of being forever changed. Lucia and Carlos, once estranged, stood at the precipice of healing or further division. Steve Harvey, sensing the gravity of the moment, prepared to confront the deeper issues that lay ahead, knowing this was just the beginning of a journey that would resonate far beyond the studio walls. The question lingered: could the bonds of family withstand such raw vulnerability? Lucia's gaze shifted, an intricate blend of defiance and vulnerability etched across her face. "I'm not the villain here, Steve," she said, her voice sharp yet trembling, as if she were walking a tightrope strung between anger and despair. "I did what I had to do to survive." Steve Harvey took a moment to absorb her words, his mind racing. He knew that confronting Lucia would not be easy. She was not just a contestant. She was a mother, a daughter, someone who had experienced pain that ran deeper than he could imagine. "But at what cost, Lucia?" he countered, his tone a mix of concern and challenge. The audience sat in rapt silence, their anticipation palpable. Carlos, her estranged brother, stood tensely beside her, his jaw clenched. "You don't understand, Steve," he interjected, his voice a low rumble. "She chose to distance herself from the family. She turned her back on us." Anger ignited in his eyes, a fire fueled by years of resentment that had been left to smolder. "Carlos, please," Lucia pleaded, her voice breaking, tears glistening as they threatened to spill over. "You think it was easy for me? You don't know what I went through after Mom passed. I felt so alone." Her words hung in the air like a fragile thread, and the audience leaned in, feeling the weight of her agony. Steve watched the siblings, the tension between them crackling like static electricity. "We're here to heal, not to hurt each other," he said, taking a step closer to Lucia. "But to heal, we need to face the truth. What really happened? Why did you choose silence over family?" Lucia inhaled deeply, her heart racing. "Because family hurt me," she said, her voice steadier now, the resolve creeping back in. "When Mom died, it felt like everyone turned away. I was drowning in grief, and instead of support, I got silence. Steve nodded, understanding the emotional turmoil that enveloped her. But he also saw the barricades she had built around herself, isolating her from the very people who seemed to want to reach out. But pushing them away didn't solve anything, did it? You're still hurting. Don't you dare lecture me on hurt, Steve. Lucia shot back, her eyes filled with a fierce light. You think you know pain? You think this is just a game to me? This is my life. It was easier to shut everyone out than to risk being hurt again. The studio held its breath. Steve felt the air thickening with each passing moment. You're not just shutting out your brother, Lucia. You're shutting out healing. You're shutting out love. Carlos interjected, his voice a mix of desperation and fury. Love? Is that what you call it? You abandoned us. Lucia, you were supposed to be there for me, for Dad. His words were like knives, cutting through the fragile atmosphere. Lucia flinched at the accusation, her facade cracking. I was hurting, too. I lost my mother, just like you, but you never asked how I felt. You just assumed I was the problem. Steve sensed the tide shifting, the emotional tumult rising like an unrestrained wave threatening to crash. Maybe it's time to stop assuming, he urged, feeling the urgency of the moment. Maybe it's time for both of you to listen, really listen, to each other. Lucia crossed her arms defensively, her body language screaming reluctance. And what if I don't want to? What if I'd rather keep my distance than face this? Steve leaned in, his voice dropping to a softer yet firm tone. Then you'll miss the chance to mend what's broken. You'll miss the chance to transform pain into something beautiful. Is that what you really want? The question lingered like a haunting echo. Lucia's expression flickered with uncertainty, and for a brief moment, the defenses she had built began to waver. I don't know, Steve. I just don't know how to begin. Steve nodded, the empathy shining through his eyes. Then let's start small. What if you told Carlos one thing you wish he had understood about you? The audience held its collective breath, hearts beating in sync with the mounting tension. Lucia hesitated, her hands trembling as she searched for words that felt elusive. I wanted to be strong, she finally whispered, her voice barely audible. I wanted to be someone you could rely on, but I felt so weak inside. Carlos blinked, his anger dissipating momentarily. I never wanted you to be strong all the time, Lucia. I just wanted you to be there. The air shifted as the siblings exchanged glances, the distance between them slowly narrowing. But just as hope began to flicker, Lucia's old defenses surged back. But how could I? You were all so wrapped up in your own grief you couldn't see me. And now it feels too late. Her voice cracked, the floodgates of emotion threatening to burst open once more. Steve stepped back, wrestling with the enormity of the moment. It's never too late to try, Lucia. Healing doesn't happen in a vacuum. It takes courage, vulnerability, and the willingness to be seen, even when it's terrifying. Carlos took a step forward, his expression softening. I'm here now, Lucia. I want to understand. The sincerity in his voice cut through the tension, offering a glimpse of the love that still lingered in the shadows. Lucia looked between them, her heart pounding. But what if I fail again? Steve turned to her, his gaze steady. Then we'll pick you up. Together. That's what family is for. The weight of his words settled over the room like a blanket, as the studio audience exchanged glances of hope and empathy. The atmosphere charged with an intensity that felt almost electric, the very air around them vibrating with the possibility of connection. And just when it seemed like the walls were finally starting to come down, the overhead lights suddenly flickered. A loud crack echoed in the studio, and the power momentarily faltered, plunging everything into an unexpected darkness. Gasps of shock rippled through the audience, their collective breath held tight in their throats. As the lights flickered back to life, Steve, momentarily disoriented, regained his composure. What was that? He asked, glancing around, the change sending a ripple of concern through the tension-filled space. But before anyone could respond, Lucia's expression shifted again, this time to panic. No, no, no. I can't do this. Not now. Steve felt the ground shifting beneath them, the fragile connection they had begun to forge teetering on the brink of collapse. Lucia, wait. We're on the precipice of something real. Don't let fear win. Tremors of uncertainty danced in Lucia's eyes as she stepped back, her defenses re-erecting like a fortress against the encroaching vulnerability. I can't face the possibility of another failure. I just can't. Steve took a deep breath, sensing the urgency of the moment. But what if you faced it, together? What if this could be a new beginning? As Lucia stood at the crossroads of fear and hope, the direction of their journey hung delicately in the balance. The path forward was fraught with obstacles, but for the first time, the possibility of healing shimmered on the horizon. Whatever happened next would change everything. As the cameras continued to roll and the audience sat in stunned silence, Steve Harvey shifted his gaze from Lucia to the rest of the family gathered on stage. The air was thick with tension, a palpable energy that seemed to hang between them like an invisible thread. Lucia's eyes, once filled with defiance, began to soften, revealing a flicker of vulnerability she hadn't shown before. Lucia, Steve said, his voice steady yet laced with emotion. You've been through so much, and it's clear that the weight you carry is heavy. But there's a power in sharing your truth. It can be the first step to healing, not just for you but for your entire family. The audience leaned in, captivated. Lucia's shoulders trembled as she inhaled deeply, her defenses wavering. I just wanted to protect us, she whispered, her voice breaking. After everything we've lost, I thought if I kept my heart closed, I could keep my family safe. But it only made us drift apart. Steve stepped closer, the empathy radiating from him like warmth. But you don't have to do this alone. You're not just protecting your family, you're shutting them out. They love you, Lucia. They want to help you carry that burden. The silence in the studio shifted, becoming a cocoon of understanding. Lucia's family members, visibly moved, nodded in agreement. Her brother reached out, his voice trembling. Please, Lucia, we've all been hurting. Let us in. We can face this together. For a moment, Lucia stood frozen, caught between fear and the dawning realization of hope. And then, as if a dam had burst, the tears flowed. She stepped forward, enveloping her brother in a fierce embrace, and the rest of the family quickly joined, creating a circle of unity that transcended the stage. Steve watched, his heart swelling with pride. Look at that, he said softly to the audience. This is what family is all about. Vulnerability, connection, and love. It's never too late to start over. As the hug lingered, the audience erupted into applause, their cheers echoing through the studio. The moment was electric, a testament to the power of honesty and the human spirit. Yet, as the applause faded, a new question loomed in the air. What would the aftermath of this crucial moment be? In the immediate hours that followed, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Lucia, once a fortress of isolation, began to open up to her family. They spent the evening together, talking long into the night, sharing stories, and unraveling the years of pent-up emotions. Laughter blended with tears, and the walls that had separated them gradually crumbled. The next morning, as the sun rose and cast a golden glow over the city, Lucia felt a weight lifted from her shoulders. She picked up her phone, scrolling through social media. The segment had gone viral, with millions sharing their support and love for the family. Comments flooded in. This is real family. You're not alone. Inspiring. But beyond the online accolades, a sense of unity blossomed within her family. They began to plan regular gatherings, turning what had once been a fractured relationship into a tapestry of shared experiences. Weekly dinners became their new tradition, and Lucia found herself rediscovering the joy of connection she had long stifled. Months passed, and the repercussions of that fateful day on Family Feud rippled outward. Lucia embraced therapy, not just for herself, but as a family unit. They learned to communicate openly, to share their fears and aspirations, and to create memories that would bind them even closer. The healing process was not linear. There were challenges and setbacks. Yet, with every family gathering, every shared moment, their bonds strengthened. Steve Harvey, having witnessed the transformation, reflected on the power of vulnerability during his monologues. He often shared snippets of Lucia's story, emphasizing the importance of connection and healing in his own life. "It's about embracing the messiness of life," he would say, his voice resonating with wisdom. "We all have our battles, but together, we can find the light." Years rolled by, and the once estranged family became a beacon of resilience in their community. Lucia, now a vocal advocate for mental health, shared her journey publicly, without fear, without shame. She spoke at events, encouraging others to break the silence and embrace their truth. The journey had transformed her, not just as an individual, but as a member of a family that now thrived on love and support. The long-term consequences of that day extended far beyond their living room. Lucia's children, inspired by their mother's courage, grew up understanding the value of honesty and emotional connection. They carried the lessons of vulnerability into their own relationships, fostering an environment of openness and acceptance. Steve Harvey continued to host Family Feud, forever changed by the profound moments he had witnessed. His connection with the audience deepened as he shared stories of courage and healing. The show became a platform not only for entertainment but for social change, sparking conversations about mental health and family dynamics. And so, as the years passed, the impact of that one episode rippled through generations. Lucia's family, once defined by pain and isolation, emerged as symbols of hope and healing. The journey was ongoing, a tapestry woven with threads of love, laughter, and the occasional tears of joy. For Lucia, the horizon that had once seemed distant and fraught with obstacles now shimmered brightly with promise. A life filled with connection, purpose, and, most importantly, family. It was, indeed, a journey that changed everything.